Hey all, Brad McHugh here. So, what I want to do today was a little cooking video inspired by a recipe from 1869. I've got it here from the book The Old Ways, edited by Claude Davis. And this is a sourdough recipe for those who are curious about these sort of things. I want to get started. First part it's calling for is flour and salt in a mixing bowl, and it says 2 cups of flour to a cup of warm water. Go ahead and get that started here. So I'm just using common old all-purpose flour. I got the cheap stuff from the grocery store around the corner. And now I like to put it in a sifter. You don't have to do it this way, but I found when I'm working with sourdough, it gives it a little fluffier texture to have those air bubbles in there, right? So go ahead and measure out that 2 cups. All right, 1, 2. Gonna step real quick into the kitchen and grab that. I'll get the warm water in a minute. So it calls for some salt. Now, the recipe calls for a teaspoon of salt. Again, same old place, just common salt. Let's see. Here we go. Again, I am sifting my ingredients. The recipe doesn't call for this, but like I said, I find that it gives it a nice little bit of fluffiness to have that delicacy in there. There we go. 2 tablespoons of common sugar, cane sugar. Now, I tend to use pure cane sugar, the raw, all-natural type. I get this at Walmart. Maybe a little more pricey than standard, but it gives a taste a little bit in between brown sugar and the refined sugar. A little bit coarser, but I find that, again, when I'm working with an older recipe, it tends to behave just a little bit better. Alright, this is all of the dry ingredients, except for the baking soda. Don't want to forget that, or the bread won't rise. And it's calling for a ½ teaspoon of that. I'm just going to go ahead and put that in there. Skim that off. Again, level. You want your level measurements for this baking soda, otherwise the bread's going to have a very strong taste. You go ahead and just sift that in there. Again, I'm the one who chooses to sift flour, but I think my great grandma, whoever would approve of this. Now, let's get all that sugar lump all worked through in there. Back in her time, they wouldn't have been as delicate of a product with the sugar, and I think that they would have approved of using more of a crude ingredient. I think we're a little bit spoiled as far as what we're using in terms of getting knock a little bit of that sugar off, that flour off the side. There we go. Okay, go ahead and I'll make a little well here. Now, as far as my warm ingredients go, wet ingredients, I'm going to call for 3 cups of my starter. Now here I have a well-fed starter. It's been sitting about 4 days feeding my fridge. This is a fairly new one. I restarted on New Year's after a fiasco, which I recorded on my other blog. Go ahead and feed that. Oh, almost forgot. Now, for those of you who are new to the craft of sourdough, what I like to do when I'm working with sourdough, because it's such a sticky and difficult medium, I like to take a little cooking spray and just oil the inside of that. It doesn't harm the final product. Just go ahead and pour some starter in there. There we go. Now, I can't promise how this is going to turn out. That's my first time really working with this particular recipe. The sourdough, you're working with a yeast culture. So it's providing all that rising, beautiful stuff. Like I said, there's 2 cups, and I'll go ahead and add the 3rd cup, and I'll replenish that when I'm ready, because what you take out, you got to replace. That's pack in, pack out, right? So I'll feed that with a similar amount of flour and water when I'm ready, and then here in a moment, I'll step aside and put in some warm water. Step off camera, run some warm water from the sink. Warm, not cold. hot. Go ahead and I'm going to stir that right in this. And here, you notice I'm using a wooden spoon. And the reason for that is because metal spoons, or you use plastic too, but they react really badly with, and it causes a funny taste. And here, I'm just going to go ahead and let this just get all coated up in there. And it says, the recipe here says, supposed to stir until the dough feels wet and sticky. Tonight it looks a little bit, I'll tilt it up so you can see. It's a little bit thick, on the thick side, almost like a pancake dough. So I may add just a touch more flour for tonight's recipe. I need to cover this with a damp towel. Again, it's a plastic bowl, so it's non-reactive with the yeast culture, for 12 to 24 hours. So I'm going to stir this. I want a little more thickness. Really liking the smells coming off of it. It's kind of like a, well, it's yeasty. It's a little bit like beer or bread. It's in between there. It's very nice. Okay. I have this almost done. There we go. It's got a nice consistency now. Just on the wet side of bread dough. And I'm going to check on this again come morning. It's supposed to let it sit for 12 to 24, and I would believe that. Pull my spoon out because I don't want that to rise. And we're going to finish this up. And part of the cooking video. I had to shoot this on a different camera. It's been about 24 hours since I've done this. Let this bread rise. I had to add some more flour to the mix because it's done its magic and worked its way through it. I went ahead and got some glass baking pans. Went ahead and spray this through. Out and back so it doesn't react. I've worked it through the wooden spoon. I let the bread out. I'm just gonna kind of loosely form this into my pan. Yep. Alright, so here's the finished product. Took about 45 minutes to an hour at 350 degrees. The oven has a definitely a real crust to it. It reminds me of Italian bread or a good French bread. The odor, it's definitely got that sourdough tang in the air. Stands up well. I just put a little bit of butter on here, letting it melt. I wanted you to see the finished result because I've got so much invested in this.